Have you ever had that feeling, that you're not really seeing the world or even the people right in front of you as they actually are? Well, today we're going to dive into the story of a photographer who grabbed that exact feeling and turned it into an artistic obsession, a creative crisis, and, believe it or not, a really profound discovery about what it means to truly see. We do not see each other directly. We see each other through layers. This right here, this was the sentence that changed everything for him. It became the absolute core of his whole project. It's this realization that maybe what stands between us is just as important, maybe even more so, than what we think we're seeing face to face. You'd think a project this deep started with some grand theory in a studio, right? Nope, not at all. It started on the street, with a moment you or I would probably just walk right past. A piece of trash, a sheet of plastic, caught on a fence. And behind it, a stranger, all blurred out. And in that instant, he felt like he'd seen something he'd always known but never really understood. So that one little moment, it sparked this methodical hunt. He started carrying his camera everywhere, but now he was actively looking for these layers, these interruptions. What started as a total accident quickly became this focused, almost obsessive investigation into the very nature of how we see. And he set a really crucial rule for himself right away. This project was not about photographing literal veils, like scarves or curtains. No, for him, the veil was a condition. It was the condensation on a bus window, or the thick smoke hanging in the air, or even the chaotic, beautiful blur of someone moving past him. He even started to categorize his findings. He explored what he called the veil of texture, how something like water or a mesh screen could fracture a face into something totally new. He chased the veil of movement, smearing a person's identity into just a streak of light. But his most vital discovery, especially for us today, was what he called the digital veil. Yeah, the screens that have become the most powerful layers of all. And this is where it gets really interesting. By using a slow shutter speed, he had this startling realization. A perfectly clear picture might actually be a lie. That blur of a person just turning their head, that felt more honest. It captured the fluid, unstable truth of who we are from one second to the next. He started seeing it everywhere. The cold blue light of a phone lighting up a face in a dark room. The perfectly curated, filtered self-portraits all over social media. He suddenly understood that the layers separating us weren't just glass and fog anymore. Now, they were pixels and algorithms. So at this point, he'd found his artistic voice. He was building this really successful, consistent body of work, or so he thought. Because at his very first gallery show, at the exact moment he should have been celebrating, everything completely fell apart. All because of a few quiet words he just happened to overhear. Can you imagine hearing that about your life's work? Distant, like I'm not being let in. A curator later confirmed his worst fears, saying the work felt so controlled, so technically perfect, that she just couldn't find an emotional way in. The very thing he was exploring, distance, was now being used as a weapon against his own art. This led to a pretty devastating personal question. He'd been so focused on observing the veils around other people that he never stopped to think that maybe he was using the project as his own veil. I mean, if you're an artist who's scared of true connection, what's a better defense than creating technically brilliant work about the impossibility of connection? The veil wasn't just his subject, it was his shield. Okay, so a crisis like that demands a radical change. He knew he had to abandon the safety and the control of his whole system and move towards something much riskier, something more vulnerable, and in the end, something way more honest. His entire artistic process just got turned on its head. I mean, look at this. He went from being a distant observer, making these precise, controlled images, to being an involved participant, creating work that was imperfect, uncertain, but deeply, deeply human. It was a complete and honestly probably terrifying reversal. He stopped taking photos from a distance, which, can be an act of power and control. Instead, he started collaborating. He created these unstructured moments where he was simply responding to another human being in the room. He wasn't in charge of the outcome anymore. And yeah, that was the entire point. And in these new, beautifully imperfect photos, he saw it. A shadow falling across a face, or a blurred, uncertain expression. It didn't erase the feeling. It just complicated it. It forced you, the viewer, to lean in, to feel your way through that distortion. And that made the emotional connection deeper, more earned, not weaker. So armed with his raw, new understanding, he had to completely rethink how he even presented his art. The project was no longer about showing people the veil. It was about inviting them to step inside of it right there with him. So get this. Imagine walking into a gallery where the art is never static. For his next show, he hung these huge prints behind massive translucent panels. You had to physically move your body just to get a clear look at an image. And as you did, your own reflection would suddenly appear layered right onto the portrait. There was no single perfect spot to stand because the work was designed to be unstable and totally interactive. You are not seeing these images directly, you are seeing them through yourself. This was the only sentence of text in his final photo book. It's such a brilliant move, right? He takes the entire concept of the veil and just flips it back on us, the viewer. The final layer, he's saying, is always our own perception, our own history, our own bias. And in the end, that's what the work became. It wasn't an answer to the question of seeing. It was a space to just sit with the question. He finally accepted that the veil isn't a problem we need to solve, but a fundamental condition of how we experience the world and each other. After following this whole journey from a hunt for clarity to a full embrace of distortion, it really makes you wonder. If we all just let go of our desperate need for a perfectly clear, unobstructed view of everything, what else might we finally be able to see?